the interwebs, and welcome back to yet another stream. Welcome to Novel Mondays, where we are playing Seduce Me the Otome, as always. It is just me today, guys. So, yeah, we're gonna be continuing, James's route. Um, let's just go on ahead and I guess just jump right into it. We don't have any craziness today, so we're just gonna be chilling, doing some reading, and yeah. So here we go. All right. Also forgive me if this is not the where we left off last time. It's been a little bit because I had some internet issues last Monday, and that's why we weren't able to play. So I don't really remember where we last left off, so I'm hoping this is the right one. Should be, because I loaded the correct save, maybe, but I don't know. I don't remember. So we will figure that out eventually. Anyway, a wave of happiness washed over me as I laid in bed. I made a good choice. Sure, it would be hard, but I could tell that I would be able to manage it. Help around the house and being with a man whom I was slowly starting to fall for would be worth it. I think this is after Malik's. I think. So, okay. Again, I don't remember. This is the correct point in where we left off. But yeah. Anyway, I slowly felt my exhaustion take over. I let sleep consume me as I drifted into the darkness in my mind. Everything was peaceful. I was happy. Yeah, okay, so this is when Diana comes in. Okay. Okay. No monster. Yes.
You are an interesting creature.
I opened my eyes to see a woman staring down at me with a very sly smirk on her face. I opened my mouth to scream in fright, but a hand quickly covered my mouth.
No screaming now. Too early, silly girl.
I could only stare up at the woman above me. I still felt weak, not having the strength to move and fight her off. What was going on, and why was she here?
Why do the boys like you? You're unique, yes, but that can't be all that you have going for you.
Rage began to consume my core again. This woman, whoever she was making me mad. She must have known as she let another smirk grow onto her face.
Ooh, you're feisty. That could be why.
Before I could bite her hand in anger, she removed her hand from my lips, standing up and staring down at me from her place next to my bed. I quickly sat up and glared daggers at the intruder. She was very beautiful, but I felt more anger than amazement. Who the hell are you and why are you in my room? The woman began to laugh, making the rage inside me increase. I wanted to punch her, but I waited for her answer.
How silly of me. I forgot that we demons are not well known of in your world. You can call me Diana, little human.
Diana? Demon? I mean, she obviously has power, okay? You're a demon?
I am, but I'm much more than just an average demon.
What do you mean?
Silly girl. I'm a succubus.
I stared at Diana in shock. A succubus? First incubi, now a succubus. Great. I had now met both genders of sex demons. I feel a sneeze coming on. Oh god. I will hopefully mute my mic before I sneeze so I don't blow you guys' eardrums out, but I will apologize if I don't. Diana crossed her arms under her bosom and looked at my body.
Well, you are pretty. But you seem very reckless. Too reckless.
Shut up. I moved out and stood from the bed, still glaring at Diana. Why are you here?
Oh, I just wanted to see who my competition was.
Competition?
For the boys, of course. They don't belong here.
Oh my god,
And
my
yet
nose is
here
itchy.
they remain. I want to know why and remedy this little issue.
This girl was seriously pissing me off. Issue? What issue? They want to stay here so they can.
Silly, uneducated human. You don't understand the important roles these boys play in the Abyssal Plains. You keeping them here is practically imprisonment.
You have about 10 seconds to leave.
Is that a threat? How cute. What are you going to do? Kill me?
And if I do?
You barely have the strength to stand, little human. I can rip the rest of your energy out and knock you into a coma. You'll never be able to wake up again.
Touch me and I'll...
Enjoy every minute of it.
We don't talk about that. I felt my body freeze and heat up to almost a painful haze. My mind began to feel fuzzy as Diana stepped to me and caressed my cheek.
Now, you're going to listen to everything I say without any questions. Got it?
I nodded.
Good. I plan to bring the boys back to the Abyssal Plains. Why? So that I can take my place as queen of their realm. They have no reason to be here in this silly little world, so I'm going to make sure they return home. Okay, Pumpkin?
I nodded but growled. My rage couldn't be concealed despite the hold I was under. You evil bitch.
Call me evil all you want, dearie. I'm not evil. You're just in my way.
No, I'm pretty sure you're evil. I felt Diana lean into my ear and whisper, making me unconsciously shiver in both pleasure and annoyance.
Now,
I don't
be
like
a good little
ASMR.
human and go to bed. I'll make sure they're gone before you get home tomorrow from school, so make sure to say goodbye in the morning.
I felt my body move on its own to lay in bed and cover itself with my bedsheets. I glared at Diana the entire way down. Diana laughed at my futility. I'll get you.
Oh, please.
Oh,
do.
shit. All of a sudden, her voice deepened and became cold and demonic, sending a violent scared shiver down my spine. Her red eyes practically illuminated in the darkness of my room as she glared at me. Oh my god, my eye.
Give me a reason to make your life a living hell.
Oh, try me, bitch. I gritted my teeth, trying to fight back against the hold on me. She couldn't have been that tough. She needed energy to survive, right? I was sure she couldn't have had enough to hold me down forever. Ugh. Sorry, my eye. God. Anyway. Diana then laughed and returned to normal.
Oh, and make sure you don't tell the boys I was here. I want my visit to be a surprise.
I felt the hold on me disappear, allowing me to sit up and practically growl at Diana in rage. What's stopping me?
Then you must not care about your friends and family as much as you care for the boys.
I stopped and stared. What did she mean by that? Was that a threat to my family? Diana smirked at me, knowing the confusion behind my eyes.
Let's just say that if you tell the boys about me, I'll make sure that no one will care for you, and you'll be all alone in this little house until the day you die.
I could feel fear creeping into me. Alone? How could she do that? The word demon reverberated in my head, reminding me that I was facing off against something supernatural. A human with the shield versus a devil was one thing. A human on her own versus a demon was another.
Have a good night.
Yeah, fuck you. And with that, Diana sank to the floor through a magic purple pentagram, which disappeared as her head vanished into the floor. I couldn't believe it. I had one problem and now I had another. Instead of a crazy cycle psycho devil who wanted to kill me and the boys. I had a succubus wanting to ruin my life and take the boys away. Could my life get any worse? I mean, think about all the benefits you have, though. No, I wasn't gonna let her win. She's not as powerful as she looks. I know it. I had to mentally confirm it. She wasn't going to win. The boys wanted to stay with me. I let out a sigh before closing my eyes, affirming my plan of action. No matter what she was going to do, I was going to beat her. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and skip. We're gonna tell the boys. We're gonna skip this Diana scene. Oh hell no! Okay, actually,
You hear-
okay, yeah. Alright.
Students.
Miss Diana.
Alright. My heart stopped. At the door with the dean was Diana, looking over the students and smirking as her eyes landed on me. She strutted to the teacher's desk, ignoring or welcoming the whispers from the other students, before sitting in the wood and crossing her legs.
Thank you, Dean. You can go now.
With a wave of Diana's hand, the dean left the classroom, closed the door, and left the area. Diana smiled at us, making my stomach turn. What was she going to do?
So, history. History. Such a silly thing, isn't it? I mean, what do we care about the past? We're in the present.
The rest of the class, including Naomi and Suzu, hesitantly nodded in agreement, unsure about this new teacher, but was willing to listen to more of what she had to say.
The present is so full of wonderful things. While the labors of the past are the reason we have many things, it is our chance and privilege to utilize what has been given to us.
Her charm was almost infectious. The class was practically starting to eat out of her hand. I looked around to see classmates grinning and agreeing with Diana. I pressed my lips together as I listened further. I had no choice.
What's even funnier about human beings is that some of the bits of history we hear as either made up or completely biased to one side. It's like a story you read as a child. You hear of the princess and the prince, and they live happily ever after. But what about the family she left behind? What of her friends?
The students listened and agreed intently to her words. I could tell, however, that these words were all targeted at me.
The original story of The Little Mermaid, a perfect example of biased opinion. Here we have a girl who thinks she can be with this prince, but this prince has to marry a princess. What would happen if the mermaid had her way? What makes the mermaid so important that the princess has to suffer the consequences?
It doesn't matter what happens to the princess. The rest of the class turned their heads to me. Naomi and Susan looked at me with equally surprised looks. I kept my eyes to Diana. If I was the mermaid, I wasn't going to let the princess take my prince away. Diana stared at me before smiling and turning her body to fully face me.
Oh? And why does it not matter?
The story is about the princess. The story is about the mermaid and the prince.
Ah, but that is exactly my point. While the story talks about the mermaid and the prince's romance, we don't see the problems of the kingdom the prince rules. While we are all fixated with this love story, we ignore the fact the kingdom would fall apart without the marriage between the prince and princess.
She kept her eyes to me as she spoke. I knew she wanted to make her words stick in my mind, but I didn't listen. It was one thing to be a fictional story, it was another to try and ruin someone's life for selfishness. Diana chuckled and looked back to the class.
Well, luckily in the real story of The Little Mermaid, the mermaid knows that what she was doing was wrong, and she threw herself into the ocean, turning into sea foam.
Some of the students that surrounded me mumbled in surprise, obviously not knowing the real story. However, Diana was wrong once again. That's not true. Once again the class looked to me, and Diana faced me with another smile.
Not true. How so?
The trade-off for becoming human was marrying the prince or turning into sea foam. However, she was also given the choice to kill the prince and turn back into a mermaid. The mermaid didn't because she loved him and sacrificed herself for that love. That is a story worth telling. Not some princess getting her way, but of a tragedy that had befallen on a girl who only wanted love. The class applauded me, with Suzu giving me her usual punch to my shoulder and Naomi smiling at my logic. Diana, however, finally grew an almost angered face at me.
Interesting. So what you are saying is that the princess should be given no mind.
The story is not about the princess. The story is about the mermaid, and the mermaid should have gotten her prince.
Even at the risk of a kingdom falling apart?
Even if the entire world fell apart around them, duty does not overrule love, and the princess needs to realize this. The applause that followed that intensified with whoops and hollers. I felt a wave of confidence roll through my body. Diana was going to win. I wasn't going to let her. Diana then stopped talking and looked to the clock on the wall, reading it quickly. This class had barely begun. Why was she looking at the time? Diana then leaned against the blackboard and smiled to us. I became worried.
You know what? School isn't important. Everyone, go ahead and head home. Take the week off.
The students suddenly began to chat happily or in confusion of the situation. Many thought it was a dream come true. Others knew better. Before anyone could protest, however, Diana pressed the figure to her lips and counted with her fingers in the air. 3, 2, 1. The speakers of the classroom gently awoke, giving us an announcement we would never believe.
Attention students, due to an emergency faculty meeting, we will be closing school for the remainder of the day and this entire week. Please leave the school quickly and quietly and have a good rest of the week.
If this happened to me in school, I would celebrate. She used her powers on them. Damn it. I felt the need to stop her, but how could I stop a demon in the middle of a public area? Diana smiled before gesturing to the door.
Have a nice week off. School will resume next week.
Many of the students bowed out, chatting to each other about new impromptu plans. Suzu was beyond happy, but Naomi was hesitant. Before we could pack up and leave, however, Diana stepped to us.
Excuse me, little miss. I'd like you to stay a little while. There's something we need to discuss.
As Diana looked to Suzu and Naomi, she snapped her fingers, making my friends tense up.
You two can head home. Don't worry about your friend until next week, okay? If you contact her, she won't reply, so don't bother. If she contacts you, ignore her, because she's just fine.
Little bitch. As if on command, Suzu and Naomi left the room. I tried to march after them, but Diana stepped in my path, warning me with her eyes that if I followed, there would be hell to pay. I had lost my two friends, at least for the week. Diana and I were alone, just like she wanted. I slammed my hands on the desk in front of me and glared at Diana. What are you doing and what are you thinking?
What? Do I not make a good teacher? I figured you should have a little lesson, so I took matters into my own hands.
Whatever you're trying to do won't work.
You really think so, dear? And what makes you so sure about that?
What was making me so sure? Why was I confident? Were the boys worth this? My thoughts began to fill with doubt. All of the uncertainties about this whole ordeal began to cloud my mind. If the boys were ever found out, there would be hell to pay. Was it worth it? What about Diana? What would she do to me? Would she make my parents forget about me completely? Would she ruin my friends' lives out of spite? In my gut, I felt a stone of confidence try to fight back, but the heaviness of my thoughts began to dissolve that stone little by little. What was going on with me? I looked up to Diana once again to see her gaze boring into my eyes. She was using her powers on me. This time I was away from home, so I couldn't escape. Or could I? Did I want to? The way she stared at me made me feel warm and fuzzy inside my chest. I felt like melting. Damn, sex demons. Diana lifted a hand under my chin and ran her thumb over my lips, licking her own. I could feel little shots of energy zipping from under my skin into my chin where she held me.
Now, let's have a little taste of that sweet, virginal sexual.
Hey, don't call me out again. I watched as she leaned in, ready to kiss me and take my energy. Half of my body felt elation at the idea. The other half completely rejected it and didn't want her to even touch me. James, help me. Suddenly, Diana stopped in her tracks.
James, who is...
It then dawned on her.
Ah, one of the boys. Why don't you tell me which boy is James?
I found myself nodding compliance. The oldest? Hannah giggled in reply before letting go of my face and stepping back.
Really? The eldest son with you?
I nodded once again, but this time it was partly my own decision to reply. Diana let out a sound that mimicked a cat's purr before stepping away from me.
All right, then. Well, if it's the eldest son you're infatuated with, you should really rethink your romantic options.
Diana chuckled before kissing my nose, where I felt a shot of energy zap out of my body, almost making me dizzy and recoil. Diana then turned to the desk and sat on the wood, crossing her legs.
You can go now. Remember, no class for the rest of the week.
And how am I supposed to get home? My two friends left me here, thanks to you.
Oh, were they your ride? My apologies. Let me help then.
Diana then lifted her hand and snapped her fingers. I suddenly felt the floor sink from underneath me, forcing me to look down. A purple pentagram surrounded my feet, pulling me into the ground. Not doing that. Before I could fight, however, I sank fully into the floor, fading into darkness and shutting my eyes. As I opened them, I felt my silk sheets surround me, soothing my anxiety from the darkness that had previously surrounded me. What the? Why did Diana bring me home? Was this an illusion? Was I being tricked? Something was going on. I sat up in bed looking around me. I was indeed in my room. There was no mistake about that. Why? Diana is too strange. Was this a game? Was this part of her plan to get the boys back? I was lost and confused more than ever. Despite my logical thought trying to piece the puzzle that Diana is together, the more I tried to solve her, the less I understood about the situation that I was in. God. I was interrupted, however, by my door suddenly opening, revealing the boys with Damien's hand on the doorknob. Okay, we can skip all this. Yeah.
I guess. Please.
Yes, of course. Okay, we could skip all this. Skip. Okay. Better. James nodded before he gently reached over and ran his hand through my hair, examining my face with soft sadness.
I'm sorry this is all happening to you. I really wish there was something I could do to fix all of this.
Okay. James, it's not your fault.
No, if we never came, then you'd never be targeted by either Malix or Diana.
I quickly reached over and put my finger on his lips, stopping him from going any further. I didn't want to hear anymore. James, it's okay. I wanted to help you out. I offered to let you all stay. Nothing is your fault. I gently moved my hand and cupped James's cheek, staring at him with concern. I didn't want him to hold guilt in his mind about this whole ordeal. Diana was desperate, and she'd had anyone for them. It wasn't his fault she was desperate enough to hunt them down. However, I was curious. So, James, you're a demon prince? James did twirl a strand of my hair around his finger, staring at it.
Yes, I am. I was.
Was?
I was a demon prince when I lived in the Abyssal Plains. I didn't enjoy a single minute of being the heir. The only moments I truly enjoyed were when I was with my brothers. Thus, I left with them to come here.
What was it like while you were there?
Well, other than consistent studying and training to be a resilient leader and all-around ruthless lord, it was bland. I never truly knew what freedom was until I was excused from my sessions.
James looked to me with a thoughtful look on his face. I stared back, wondering what was going through his mind. He then smiled before taking off his glasses and placing them on me. I was surprised, but instead of seeing him, I saw dark gold and purple magic swirl in front of my eyes through the glass. The vision cleared, and I suddenly was back in the demon castle. I looked around, feeling stuck in place, but my eyes instantly landed on the demon version of James. He was sitting on the throne of the main hall, reading over a book with an intense expression. It was kind of cute to see, but he read in silence.
You'll wear out your eyes if you read too much.
James looked up from his book to see a figure materialize in front of him. It was an older woman with the black cloak and aged horns. I could see she had power, though, and it gave me shivers to look at her.
Sirona, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at the Lord Gathering with my father?
I should, yes. But I had to stop by and see the Demon Lord's favorite son before I head in.
I am honored. However, I must apologize and return to my reading.
Of course, of course. Wouldn't want to make the Demon Lord angry now, would you?
I could see James's eye twitch a bit at her comment. However, James simply bowed his head and went back to his book in silence. Sirona shook her head and let out a chuckle.
What will you do when you become the Demon Lord? It's such a big responsibility.
James looked up once again, confused at the question. Sirona simply smiled and began to walk away.
Think about that.
Is she like some sort of like shaman, I guess? Shaw woman? Because, you know, she doesn't get, like, Sirona doesn't really ever get explained, so, in this game, so I don't really know who she is. James and I watched her walk away, both of us with the same surprised and confused expression. I looked back to James to see him press his lips together and stare at the floor. Anyone could tell that he was lost. I'm sure of how to even answer that, unsure of how to even answer that to himself. It was strange to see him in a form of weakness, jostled at a simple question that was more than it appeared. James closed his eyes and closed the book on his lap. It was then that I noticed the tired circles under his eyes. He had been working himself to the bone with his training and reading. When was the last time he slept? I could feel James in the real world gently slide the glasses away from my face and place them back on his. It took me a second to recenter my vision, but I then looked to James, who smiled at me.
It was then that I decided to find my brothers. Little did I know that they were wanting me to come on a trip that would make me leave my entire realm to be in a new world.
I stared up at him, surprised, before bringing my hand gently back onto his cheek and running a thumb softly under his eye. He looked healthier and a lot less tired than when I saw him in the vision. Something about that made me happy. James gently leaned into my hand, closing his eyes and relaxing. He then smiled, trying to joke.
So, How does it feel to hold the affections of an ex-demon prince?
I stared, feeling my cheeks glow red in surprise and embarrassment. But I smiled and giggled slightly, running my thumb back and forth along his cheek gently. I have to say, I'm flattered to think you ran away from that life. James frowned, making me stop moving my thumb as he stared at me.
I can promise you, that was no life to live.
But it was your home.
A home is where you can be yourself, not tied to your duty.
James gently ran his hand along my cheek, gingerly outlining the edge of my eye and ear with his thumb.
Home is where all I have to do is care about the ones close to me.
No. He is sweet. He really is sweet. I will say that. James. James smiled and gently leaned in, kissing my forehead. I felt a small shiver run down my spine from his kiss, noting that he sneakily took some energy from me in that little kiss.
Now, you need to rest. You're not fully recovered. You might as well rest until dinner is ready.
James smiled and gently pressed me back down onto the bed, leaning his forehead on mine. Steal a kiss because he kissed me, so fuck you. Out of playful fun, I lifted my head and gently kissed James, softly laying a hand on his cheek to keep his face close. James stared in surprise before kissing me back, caressing my cheek, slightly melting at the touch of our lips. A soft sigh escaped his lips before he slowly pulled away with a smile. He gently licked his lips, making me go red in the face at the simple gesture. He let out a satisfied hum before nuzzling my forehead.
Rest.
Yes, sir. And with that, he stood up and left the room, leaving me to rest as per his request. I smiled to myself before relaxing into the mattress. Oh no. I suddenly tensed up. I felt majorly uneasy. Something wasn't right. I felt it in my core. She must be here. We'll kind of skip through this. There we go. I peeked inside to see James by the bookshelf with Diana in one of the armchairs looking to him.
Silly man, why do you think I'm here?
To be fairly honest, I don't really care.
I'm hurt, wounded, truly. You don't care that I came to this pathetic little world just for you?
I'm sorry, let me make this clear. You are not welcome here, so I suggest leaving.
Is that any way to speak to your fiancé?
Oh, shut up. Diana wasn't his fiancé anymore. Why was she speaking as if the arrangement was still going on?
Our arrangement was broken when I left the Abyssal Plains. You are no longer my fiancé.
What a stubborn man. Just like your father. Well, you should know. He decreed that should you return home, you'll maintain your status and keep your birthright.
James would be the heir again. Why?
I don't want it.
You don't want it. You'd give up the...
I said I don't want my damned birthright.
Damn.
What birthright? It's imprisonment, a life sentence. Am I not allowed to be selfish for once in my lifetime?
You go, James.
It's your reason for your birth. Do you not realize what you have?
I could feel James's anger emanating from the crack in the door, fighting with Diana's tension. Diana and James were both matched, staring each other down.
I know exactly what I had. That's all behind me. I'm done with that. To hell with my birthright.
You go, James. You tell that bitch.
To hell with your birthright. You truly think you can decide that? You are the first son of the Demon Lord. You are the heir to the throne, and I am your bride, the next Demon Queen.
Why was Diana so desperate? It irked me to see how desperate she was to get James to return.
Raystrau, you...
Oh no. All of a sudden, James ran at Diana and pinned her to the floor by her neck. I felt the need to jump in, but I knew James wasn't trying to do anything romantic. He wouldn't. His voice sent shivers down my spine as he continued to speak with his hand at her throat.
And what gives you the right to use my name like that? Only demons of the same blood are permitted to use each other's true names.
When our families arranged our marriage, I was given permission to use your name as mine. That's what you are, James. You are my husband. I am your queen. You are my Rhaestrel. I am your Izeur.
Well, now we know Diana's true name. I could hear James growling in anger, like he was ready to bite Diana's head off like a wolf would a small deer. I felt myself growl quietly to myself as well. However, James pushed himself off of the floor and returned to the opposite side of the room, away from the prone Diana.
I do not belong to you. I belong to her.
Yes.
The human girl? You must be joking. A human like her can't possibly provide you what you need. She is a human. You're a demon.
I felt the urge to storm in and shut her mouth. It would give away my position, but I was growing extremely tired of Diana. Barge in and set her straight. I decided to be assertive and quickly stepped into the room, throwing the door to the study wide open. Diana and James looked at me in surprise as I glared daggers at Diana. Get out.
Well, well, little human. You're awfully nosy in business that doesn't concern you.
It does concern me.
Does it? I don't think a human would understand the importance of this affair.
You're asking him to leave to be someone he doesn't want to be. That's not going to happen.
Oh? And what makes you so sure about that?
I love him! Diana stared in shock at my exclamation. Was it not what she expected? I didn't care what she expected. I wasn't going to lose the man I had grown to love.
You love him?
Yes, I love him. Diana's lips twitched, the edges curling into an amused smirk as she stared at me.
So what? A human's love isn't enough to understand the situation. A demon can never reciprocate human feeling.
To both of our surprise, however, James stepped forward and put an arm around me, pulling me close to his body.
I love her.
Yes. I saw the confidence Diana had shatter in her eyes as she stared at James at his words. I could see the struggle in her face to try and find some weakness in James, in me, anything.
A demon love a human? Impossible.
It's only impossible because you don't have the capability to love.
Oh.
This woman has given so much to shelter me and my brothers and has given me her heart to cherish. I'd rather care for this woman for the rest of my days than spend an eternity on the demon throne. Especially if the queen is you.
Oh, shit! Diana took a step back, physically feeling the sting of James's words in her chest. She had lost. I could see it in her eyes. Diana's eyes grew dull as she glared at me and James. It almost seemed uncharacteristic of her, yet it was something I wasn't surprised to see come from her face.
Very well. Fine. Valet.
And with that, Diana faded into the ground into a purple pentagram, crossing her arms and almost looking upset. James and I were then left alone, left with the silence of the room. I finally let out the air I was unconsciously holding in my chest, relaxing from the ordeal. James stepped to me and held me gently, surprising me.
Are you okay?
I nodded in response, unable to speak so immediately after being surprised. James let out a sigh, relaxing in the embrace. I gently placed my hands around him, returning the embrace slightly. I could hear James's heartbeat. He held me close in his arms, and I felt safe beyond words.
I wasn't lying, you know.
I looked up at James, wondering what he meant by what he said. James smiled down at me, moving a strand of my hair from my face to look down at me.
I love you. I love every single fiber of you. Your mind, your body, your soul. You're quite possibly the most interesting woman I have ever met. You always find your way into my mind. You...
I stared wide-eyed, blushing like a maniac. Was this real? No way. This couldn't be real. Was James confessing to me? Confessing his love? For me? I have to make that dramatic. I'm sorry. James gently smiled and caressed my cheek. The warmth of his hand invited me to nuzzle into it and I closed my eyes. This wasn't a dream. My heart was pounding to the point where I was sure James could hear it. James gently leaned in, closing his eyes. He stopped, however, remaining just a mere torturous inch away from my lips. Excuse me. He wanted me to show my feelings for him. He had left himself open for me to kiss him or leave him empty. The power I had was unbelievable. Kiss him, of course. I loved him and wanted to give him exactly what he wanted. I gently leaned in, letting my lips finally touch his gingerly. James let out an almost pleasured purr against my lips before wrapping both of his arms around my waist, pulling me close to him. I moved my arms up and around his neck, feeling the kiss between us deepen to a heated height. My chest was pounding, making me feel and see fireworks in my mind. James was everything I desired. He was the man I wanted, demon or not. It was also supernatural to fall in love with someone so quickly. Maybe it was the sense of magic I was thrown into. Maybe it was Cupid playing with my heart. Either way, I found myself melting at the thought of him being with me. I found myself combing my fingers through James's hair, making the man holding me softly tremble at my touch. He gently nibbled on my lower lip, asking me to deepen the kiss between us even further. I easily teased him before finally opening my mouth slightly for him. His tongue gently danced with mine as one of his hands slid up my back and cradled my head. He gently leaned my body back, making me cling to him as the heat of our kiss rose higher and higher. Gently, though, James slowed the kiss down and pulled away, staring down at me. His eyes burned from me, wanting me to melt and buckle at in his arms. I could feel myself melt already. James opened his mouth to speak, but as a very small blush ran along his cheeks, he was reduced to a shy silence. I stared as he tried to find the words to say in my eyes. I knew exactly what he wanted. He didn't need energy, though, right? Does it matter if he needs energy? Just putting it out there. Are you?
No, I just...
I stared wide-eyed, feeling a blush on my cheeks grow. He didn't need to say anything more, but I knew what words would have followed if he continued. He wanted me. I was stunned. Was I that appealing to him? Was this passion really that deep for me? James gently lifted his head and kissed my forehead, losing the blush and finally being able to speak.
If you don't want to, we don't have to.
Consent is important. I could feel my mind go numb and purr at the idea. A moment with an incubus. He was a demon of sex, the purest form of lust and desire. My world would rock and I would enjoy every second of it. Yes, you would. At the same time, I was indeed inexperienced. Diana wasn't wrong when she claimed me to be innocent. Did I want to give that innocence to him, especially this early? I found myself forgetting the words yes and no. What could I say to him? I knew then what I wanted, but how to say it without breaking the moment. Seduce me. I couldn't believe the two words that came out of my mouth. It made the most sense to tell him yes. I needed him. I wanted him. Those two words must have made something in him finally break. James quickly resumed the kiss with me, to which I eagerly kissed back and pulled him closer to my body. The heat inside of my chest was craving his touch, and I needed to deny any space between us. James lowered a hand and brought one of my legs around his waist as he lowered his other hand to my waist. Without breaking the kiss, I gripped to his shoulders and jumped off my feet, wrapping both of my legs around him and making him hold me up. His touch kept raising my need for him higher and higher, bringing my mind to the desire that was buried in the back of my mind. James held me close, kissing me deep and making me moan against his lips. I could feel our bodies sink into the ground, noticing a gentle gold glow penetrate through my closed eyelids. Before I could open my eyes, however, I felt our bodies fall onto a familiar feeling bed with James landing on top of me. There you go, all you James simps out there. There you go. Here's the picture. The CG. There we go. That's what it's called. I stared up at James as he pulled his face slowly away from mine. His eyes were almost glowing in the dark room, piercing into my soul and making me shiver in anticipation. He effortlessly removed his gray sweater and red tie, leaving him in his tightly fitted white button-up over me. I could practically feel the heat of his skin through the thin fabric. However, as he held me, I could feel the shiver of his hands. He was nervous? Was I his first? He wasn't going to show it. He wanted me to enjoy this moment, but was afraid of screwing up. His shivering hands showed me his emotions perfectly. I gently reached up and brought his head down, kissing him once again. I wanted him not to worry. The pleasure between us would be heavenly, and we'd go through it together. I closed my eyes and gave myself to James. My mind, my body, my soul, it all belonged to him as he held me. His body, his mind, his soul, it all belonged to me as I gave into his embrace. His kisses and fingers over my skin would forever engrave themselves into my memory as our passion rose through incredible heights. Our breaths and moans to each other equally sounded and echoed like a blissful chant we never wished to end. We kept moving, loving, feeling every inch of our bodies until we had had enough and I was enveloped in his embrace. Skin to skin, heartbeats matching, we held each other in the glow of the aftermath. I nestled my head under James's chin as he held me close.
I love you so much.
Aw. I love you too. Just to hear those words come from James's mouth made my heart flutter. To hear me answer made my soul warm in glee. I could feel both of us sink into a peaceful sleep together. It was the best sleep I had in days, and I was happy. I had love and I had my happiness. My life was simply perfect. When I opened my eyes, I found myself staring into James's bare chest. I blushed and looked up to see James still sleeping. His sleeping face made me giggle softly, but the reality of the situation made my heart flutter. I couldn't believe it. I was lying next to a man I had grown to love with all of my heart. His warm embrace made me feel safe, and as the tender moment we just shared replayed in my head, I couldn't help but smile and snuggle into his chest further. Unconsciously, he held me tighter to his body, giving me more of his warmth. I didn't want to move, but then my core suddenly tightened and made me sit up without waking the man next to me. I felt my legs move and bring me to my balcony window, where I opened the glass and stepped out onto the patio. Hi, Diana. We're gonna skip this. No. I always have to double check, because sometimes I forget. Anyway. Oh, wait. Slow down. Hold on. Okay. One night, a good couple of years after the boys and I had met, I had a moment to myself. Excuse me. So I sat in my room and took in all that had happened as if it was all a dream. The demons, the devils, the magic. It was all surreal to believe. It almost frightened me to think that it could have all been a dream. But the warm feeling in my heart reminded me that it was all real. The demons, the magic, the love I had, all real. I smiled as I held my hands to my chest, relishing in the feelings dancing within my soul.
Are you okay?
Oh. No, I'm not okay, actually, because my nose won't stop itching. Anyway. Hi. I looked up from my lap to see James standing at the doorway, cross-armed with a playfully raised eyebrow. I smiled and blushed a bit. Yeah, I'm okay. I was just remembering how we met and such.
Were you now?
Yeah, and I wouldn't change anything. James smiled and walked over to me, gently taking my hands and kissing over the knuckles sweetly.
Come, I have a surprise for you.
I raised an eyebrow. A surprise? What the heck was he plotting? James simply chuckled and kissed my forehead.
I promise you'll love it.
Deciding to go along with it, I nodded and stood up. James gently took my arm under his and led me out of my bedroom. I stared in shock at the path of golden rose petals lining the floor, creating a path away from my door. James led me down the golden rose path as if this was all a part of his plan. James, what is going on? James didn't answer. He continued to lead me down the stairs of the lobby where the path, okay, I can read, where the path rounded into the dining room. God. I stared in shock as I saw the table set with candles and a large bouquet of golden roses decorating the middle. James, I sort of feel underdressed, you know?
There's nothing wrong with how you look now. You're beautiful no matter what clothes you are in.
Or out of. Just say. Oh my god. I couldn't help but let a red blush paint my face, making James chuckle once again. He led me to a seat where I was greeted with a plate of shrimp pesto on the table. James?
Remember what that is?
Of course. That, sir, is a shrimp pesto dish. There's my James impression. Not very good, I know. Don't judge me. Anyway, James laughed and smiled. I smiled back up at him, feeling nostalgia run over my heart. Giddy happiness bubbled as I looked up at the man I had loved. You made it when we first met, when you and your brothers were apologizing for getting blood in the lobby.
Well, it was more than that we had to apologize for, but that was the gist of it, yes.
How could I forget? What's this all about? James gently bent forward and kissed my forehead sweetly, making me giggle slightly.
You are such a wonderful woman. I can't believe that I can love someone this much. You have changed my whole world, and now you have become my everything. I practically get scared waking up every morning in case this is all just a blissful dream.
He's so sweet. I'm not a James simp, but I will admit that he is really sweet. James. Before I could speak further, James gently placed his fingers on my lips, hushing me, before he caressed my cheek. Shut the fuck up, bitch! Okay then, there's my boyfriend. I nuzzled into his hand, almost purring at the feel of the warmth against my cheek.
I love you, and I will never stop loving you. No matter what comes our way, I promise to be there for you as long as time keeps moving. I want to be yours forever.
Oh my god, is he proposing? Okay, Levi, bye! Before I could realize what was going on, James slowly got down on one knee beside me and took out a small black box. He lifted the top to reveal a beautiful ring with a purple gem crowned with gold and purple embellishments. Aww. I stared, my mind instantly freezing in surprise at the sight. I felt my eyes water at the immense feelings bursting inside my chest.
Will you, Miss Anderson, marry me?
I was speechless. I felt myself break and start to weep in joy. Was this happening? This had to be a dream. I mentally begged every single deity in the sky to never wake me up if that was the case. I fought my tears trying to speak to answer his question. I didn't want to leave him in the dark, and I didn't want him to be on the ground for long. Yes, I will. I stood up, crying and jumping in joy as James smiled the biggest smile I had ever seen on his face, and slid the ring onto my ring finger. As it finally ended its upward journey at the crevice of my finger, James stood up and took me into his arms, kissing me and sealing my words. I had gained the heart of a demon. No, of a man I loved. I vowed to cherish him and love him for the remainder of my days and beyond. Could a demon love a human forever? I knew James would. And that was my happily ever after. James's proposal, T. Alright guys, so before I go ahead and click here, because the credits will start rolling, I'm gonna go on ahead and actually end stream once the credits are over, so I will go ahead and say my goodbyes now. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, everyone, Jordy, out. See you guys in a sec. Alright, guys. So, once again, I will see you guys next time. Next Novel Mondays, I will actually be starting the final route besides for the humans, which will be Diana's route. So, definitely tune in to see that because I have never played her route before. So, you will be getting genuine reactions and everything like that. So, yeah. Anyway, I will see you guys then. So, until then, everyone, Jordy out. Goodbye, guys!